Looking to start a church, business, or nonprofit organization in 2021? Do you need help forming an LLC, applying for a copyright or trademark, revising church bylaws, crafting a succession plan, or developing a compensation package for your pastor and staff? Contact the law office of Travell Travis, a Richmond-based legal boutique focused on the needs of pastors, entrepreneurs, creatives, and our community. Let's make your vision a reality in 2021. Visit TravellTravis.com. That's TRAVELL Travis.com. If you're concerned about the future of your organization when you step down, then where will the mantle fall? A biblical and legal guide to succession planning is a must-read for you. It delves into the scriptural and legal aspect of succession planning, characteristics of successors, the people, the process, church bylaws, common myths, even issues with nepotism. Where will the mantle fall? Written by Richmond's own attorney, Pastor Travell Travis, and available at Amazon.com.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Mantle Mondays. My name is Travell Travis, and I'm excited to be your host as we interview leaders, entrepreneurs, pastors, and authors, candid conversations about their journeys, their success, perhaps their struggles, their victories, and keys to success. I'm going to invite you to like, to share, to comment. If you have any questions, you can put those in the comments, and our producer will show those on the screen. But if anyone is interested in leadership, especially in terms of youth leadership or ministry or entrepreneurship or serving the community, academia, we invite them to be a part of this interview on tonight. I am so excited tonight for our guest. This month we're finishing out. Last week we interviewed Apostle Kennedy, 99 years old, served as the presiding bishop for the Way of the Cross Church for a number of years. But the rest of the month, we're shifting. We're interviewing some of the youth presidents, current and former youth presidents of some of our major apostolic organizations and reformations. And tonight, I have someone that I consider one of my heroes in the faith. Even though he's much younger than me, I've watched him as he has grown and matured, walked in his calling, and in this space as a youth leader for one of our sister organizations. And I'm just proud of him. I'm glad to know him, and I'm honored to have him on as a guest. He is the founder and CEO of the Acts movement based out of Wilmington, North Carolina. He is the associate pastor at the Greater Morning Star Apostolic Church in Wilmington, North Carolina. And he is the founding president, youth president for the Apostolic Faith Fellowship under presiding Bishop Charles Johnson. Let us welcome to Mantle Mondays tonight, Elder Reddgo Long Jr. Let's receive him with a amen, emojis, whatever, in the comments and chat.
God bless you, sir.
Elder Long, how are you, man of God?
I'm doing great. How are you?
All right. How's the weather down in North Carolina?
It's up and down. It's 80 one day. It's 60 another day.
You got a lot of pollen?
A whole lot of pollen.
I think today, here looking around, everything was yellow.
Yes, sir. It's all in the air. I was preaching yesterday, and we're outside having church, and I could literally see the pollen flying through the air onto my screen.
Oh, my goodness. Well, that's a great question even to start with. What has that been like, preaching outside? What has been your experience preaching outside?
It's almost like full circle for me, because when I began preaching, I didn't begin preaching at a young age on a platform in a pulpit. I started preaching on the street. And so that's really how my father cultivated me in ministry, was having us go to our weekly street services that we would have. We would go to different neighborhoods and the projects. We would have Saturday church, and I would preach out there at a young age, 8, 9 years old. People pulling over, looking at this little kid preach. So that's where I really got my start. And so now, because of the pandemic, we want everybody to be safe, and we're still trying to navigate in our own way within our area on how we can safely gather for worship. Just being outside has been phenomenal. We've been out there since May, the second week of May last year, up until now. And so the only time that we've moved inside is based on the weather, if it rains. So we've been out there when it's hot. We've been out there when it's cold, but the people are hungry for God. And so they're pulling up, they're finding ways to connect with the ministry. So we're still seeing what the next steps are, but right now we're kind of just riding this wave outside and people being able to pull up the church.
So I got 2 questions out of that. I love this. Let me go back to the first one. 8, 9 years old, you were preaching?
Yes, sir. I got baptized when I was 5 in Jesus' name, and I got filled with the Holy Ghost at 8. And I always wanted to preach. That was what I always wanted to do. And my dad told me when I was like 7, he said, I asked him, could I preach at the street service? And he said, when you get the Holy Ghost. And so as soon as I finished speaking in tongues, I said, Dad, can I preach? Yeah, he put me on the street to preach. And what I was doing since I was 2 years old on the family coffee table, he gave me that platform out there. And I attribute the success of my ministry to being able to rough it out there on the street. Because if you can preach on the street, you can preach anywhere.
Yeah, and as a kid, I mean, like what kind of father is that to throw his kid out there in the street to preach? So would you say you've been preaching now for 20 years? Like, was there a break and you came back to it, or was that the true beginning?
That was the true beginning. 2 straight years preaching on the street. And then, of course, people in the area starting getting wind that, Pastor Reddgo, he got this young kid. We want to bring him in to the young people. We want to let him testify a little while. So that kind of just opened up the door to start preaching throughout my preteen years, throughout teenage years, and then navigating to becoming older and getting on the road.
So what do you find would be the proper mix? And you hit on this. You started out street preaching, and then we all, as church grows, we get inside, and our members want to be inside, nice pews, air conditioned.
Yeah.
But this pandemic has shifted us back outside. And I know for our church, for a period of time, we were outside. I loved it.
Right.
If it wasn't for the pollen and the heat and the bugs, I'm like, man, I had neighbors that never stepped foot in the service, but they would sit out on the deck and eat the lunch and have service. Wow. So what do you see would be the proper mixture post-pandemic when we have the option of going back in? Should there be a certain amount of services that stay outside for that reason?
I think there should be a certain amount of services when the weather permits that you bring the message to your neighborhood. One thing that we found through the pandemic is that when we preach, if we're not streaming, we're just ministering to the people that are within the 4 walls. And really, so what the pandemic has allowed all of us to know and see is that there are people in our neighborhoods that have their windows up. And like you said, they're on their porch, that they may never step foot in our churches, but they're hearing the gospel. And when we understand and know that it's not our job to save people, but it's our job just to preach and teach the gospel, then we can kind of grab a hold of, okay, if they don't come in, we're just giving them what God has told us. And so I think there should be a good mix. And one of the things we're currently discussing with our team, if we're going to go back inside, that we're going to keep speakers outside.
Okay.
So we go back inside and we're spaced out, that we do want to keep speakers outside so people can still hear.
So are there any best practices? So you said you did this, we were out there, I think from Easter to end of June. And when it got hot, we ducked out. But you said you went through all 4 seasons, and my home church the same way. Ever since the pandemic, it's been a year. They still have an outdoor service. Are there any lessons learned for best practices for outdoor service, community engagement? Do you have any horror stories or even some positive testimonies that maybe you can share?
I won't say that it's easy because it's every Sunday is work, especially when you have a smaller team. And when I say smaller team, working with, sound system and media, because one of the hardest things to do as a church is to completely focus in online and in person at the same time.
Right.
A lot of churches right now are either 100% focused in person, spaced out, or they're 100% online. So when you try to do both, you can kind of stretch yourself.
Mm-hmm.
But what we're learning, because my brother, and I have to give credit to him, the Lord has just blessed him to be able to navigate media and to know sound and to know technology. And so we're trying to train up some people who are joining the ministry to kind of help in that capacity. And so while it is hard to do both, like you said, I love being outside. I love, even though people, they're riding up on bikes, even though people are staying in their cars. It's just wonderful being able to feel like people are hearing what you have to share.
Right.
Because you never want to come to church and prepare to preach, prepare to sing, prepare to just welcome all these people, and there only be a couple of people in there. When you preach, when you teach, you want to be around a lot of people. And so, outside really gives us that opportunity to reach a lot of people. And so the next step with that, whether we stay outside or we go back inside, is make sure that we stay connected with those people, whether they visited one time or 10 times. Really, that follow-up method is very key. Getting numbers, striking up conversations, developing relationships Monday through Saturday. Sunday really should be the icing on the cake. But that Monday through Saturday, and we're trying to implement some stuff. Like one thing that really I developed a burden for within the last couple of weeks, and today me and my pastor were talking, is that we're going to start looking at growing our church through home Bible studies. That Sunday being that, like I said, icing on the cake, but really a week. Seeing what we can do either through Zoom, or if people are letting us in their homes or on their porch, really teaching them, because we're finding people coming to church that when we make the altar call, they really don't understand the plan of salvation. And I explain it to the best of my ability. But people are still like,
just don't get it.
So, but through these home Bible studies, that gives you the opportunity to make connections, develop relationships, and them to see the word from themselves, so that when you get to that point in the lesson where you explain Acts 2:38, that they understand it and they become convicted. So that's kind of what we're in a mix of doing now. There's no secret sauce. We're just kind of doing what works best for us.
But when I hear that, if I read the histories of a lot of our apostolic fathers and founders, that's how they built their churches.
Yes, sir. Absolutely.
It wasn't this swapping members and trading members and splitting churches. They hit the streets. They had the megaphone, street corner, in-home Bible studies, praying for people, Spirit of God move in the house and the whole house gets saved. So it seemed to me God has allowed through this pandemic for us in many ways to go back to the basics that perhaps we never should have left in the first place.
Yes, sir. I mean, we're supposed to be a New Testament church in practice and in principle, and that's how the New Testament church grew. That they went from house to house, breaking the bread. And so even with the pandemic, with Zoom and with technology, you can still go from house to house. And so it's important that we stay connected. That even though some people might leave, that you stay connected with those people that are coming in.
So let me ask you, what has been the most effective way to connect and follow? Has it been the traditional guest card? Has it been more of a text subscription? How have you managed out in the parking lot to kind of get that information for follow-up? Or have people been reluctant to give you their information outside?
I'll say it's a mixture of the text subscription that they can text GMSAC, which is Greater Morning Star Apostolic Church, to the number 56525. But then we have a lot of people who aren't tech savvy. They're not older, but they hear me say the text subscription doing service, but they don't pull out their phone. That's just the culture in this city is just different. And God has allowed me and my pastor to really understand the culture of the church, and that it's different than other cities that we've been to. I've been across this country, and Wilmington, North Carolina is just different. But that's why God put us here. He put us here for that specific reason. So through text subscription and just, getting numbers and calling is really what I found, and sending just a quick text to those that are connected with the ministry is what really helps us retain members. And we're trying to make sure we delegate that so that the pastor and assistant pastor aren't always doing the calling.
Right.
Especially if there's young sisters. We got a lot of mothers in the church,
right,
missionaries in the church. Hey, these are your 2 or 3 people that I want you to call this week just to check on them and ask how they're doing.
Wow. So when you go back in, are you anticipating that the Lord has added to the church by this, where many churches have decreased and declined? Are you almost, when the time comes, you go back in, that you're seeing an increase in numbers because of all the people been added to the church?
Yes, sir. I think if we were to go back inside safely this Sunday, that there would be different faces that we have not seen in there. I think the number will be different. It just amazes me as I'm on the trustee staff, I guess, or finance team, if you will. And ever since we've been outside, we have had more that the Lord has added financially.
Thank you, Jesus.
In this past year that I've ever seen in years past.
Wow. Thank God for that. I love that. And I appreciate hearing a testimony, because somebody may be watching today, they're discouraged, things have taken a left turn in numbers and finances, but it may require you to make some adjustments, to pivot, go back to basics.
Yes,
and going back to basics: prayer, Bible study, outreach, home Bible studies, outdoor preaching and ministering. Maybe that is the thing that God wants, the church to go outside the 4 walls and really make an impact in the community. Now we're on this line of questioning, and I had planned to get to some things later in the conversation. But while we're here, not only is your church preaching in the community, but the Lord has blessed you to also start a nonprofit organization,
yes,
the Acts movement. Can you tell us a little bit more about the Acts movement, how it got started, and how God uniquely positioned you with the nonprofit before the pandemic, and then allowed God to use what you already had in place to minister even further to the community?
Absolutely. So the Acts movement stands for a commitment to serve. And it's a name that God gave me, a vision that God gave me about 4 years ago. And originally I started this nonprofit organization simply to help be a resource for young people in our community and to be a youth mentorship program. And it kind of just sat after a friend of mine, Pastor Derek Miller from Indiana. I always have to shout him out because he's the one that really helped me get this started and to get the nonprofit cemented. And so after maybe like a year or 2 of just sitting there, I went to the MOK Center trying to ask, hey, what kind of youth programs can I get involved in? What can we do? And it seemed like every question that I would ask would be left unanswered, and people that I would try to connect with in the community wouldn't call me back, or I didn't know the right people. I was still new to the area. And when Hurricane Florence hit our city in 2018, it was almost total devastation. There are still houses to this day that are still waiting to be rebuilt, and people who are still in recovery 3 years later, just because of, I believe it was a Category 5, and it completely destroyed a lot of homes and a lot of areas here. And a lot of us left simply because it was going to be bad. And when I got back into town, I actually was not supposed to come into town. They were telling everybody to stay home, or stay away. I was in Maryland at the time, and they were telling everybody to stay away for the next couple of days. But I just felt the burden to come back. I came back, found a back way home. And, once I got back, people were like, how can we help? And I said, well, we have a nonprofit organization, so let's see what we can do. And a couple of pastors reached out to my father and said that they had a truck full of water that was delivered. And they said, hey, we want you to take it to your church and pass it out. And so then that's when the idea just kind of clicked in my head, that God was saying the Acts movement is here to serve as a resource, not just for young people, not just for individuals, but for families that are in this city.
Wow.
To really be an outreach unit to help lift up these families that are in our area. And so from there, we developed a plan. a vision that my pastor always had was to start a food pantry.
Okay.
And before we got to the location that we're at now, we did not have any space for it. We were renting the property that we were at before, and it was just kind of just a dream that he had. And when we transitioned, which is a testimony in itself, to the building that we are in now, we applied to be a partner agency with the food bank of Central and Eastern North Carolina. And ironically, we had a meeting scheduled with the food bank the week of the hurricane.
Wow.
After the meeting got rescheduled, rightfully so, we finally met. Right the day before we met, they sent an email and said, hey, yeah, we want all this stuff from you. We want to know how many people you serve. We want to know what you guys do. Now, I didn't know the Lord was looking out, that if we hadn't met before the hurricane, I would have said, I have nothing to show you. I have nothing to give you. But during the hurricane, we were doing grocery giveaways organically. People were just donating, and we were just getting resources, and we were a hub and a distribution center and just getting it out. People were bringing in, we were getting it out to the people. And so when we finally met with the food bank, we said, yeah, okay, well, here's all the people we serve. Here's all of our flyers. This is what we've done.
Right.
We were to partner with them in October of 2019, and we strategically planned for 3 months. I said, we want to plan. I want to make sure everybody's schedule's together. Everybody's going to be committed. And January 2020, we're going to launch this thing. We're going to be big, and we're going to make it happen. And we did all that planning for January and February, and then March, it all fell to. And we were like, we've been doing this for 3 months, serving 20 people, 25 people there. And then all of a sudden, COVID hits, the world is going crazy. And I look at my team and I said, even though everything's crazy, we have access to food. And so we set up and we said, we're going to start drive-through distribution. We were doing it inside our regular food pantry. People can come in, sign up. They would go in our dining hall. It was a table method. They can go to each table. They can pick out canned goods, pick out meat. I wanted to give them the grocery store experience.
Okay.
When the pandemic happened, I'm like, well, they can't come inside. Right. We didn't know we're supposed to wear masks or not. Nobody knew what to do.
Right.
And I said, I know we could do a drive-through. I used to work at Chick-fil-A. So I said, I know we can do a drive-through style. And we did it, and we went on the news, which was a blessing and a curse. We went on the news. And when we an hour before we started, there were literally cars lined up 6 to 7 blocks down the street waiting to get this food that we were passing out. And that really was the start of this drive-through food pantry. And we've been doing it from that time all the way up until now. And it's been full of trial and error. Okay. And I've got to thank God for our volunteers and our team that stick with me through some crazy that I had. You know, I was like, yeah, we're going to preach on Sunday morning. Right. And after Sunday morning, we're going to serve the community. And, you know, they stuck with it. They were like, whatever you want to do, we got you. And, you know, they allowed me to, you know, make some mistakes and figure things out. And so now we have it cemented every first and third Monday from 6 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. We are at a time where no food pantries in the city are open after 5. I said, what about that mother that gets off at 5 o'clock? Right. About those individuals that don't get their kids till after 5. And we found a time where we can really serve and make a huge impact. We do it twice a month. So the volunteers get a week off in between, and the Lord has blessed us. And our numbers thus far, we average about 300 people that we feed every month.
300 people every month and I assume these are people that truly, sincerely need the groceries that you're providing. No ifs, ands, buts about it.
Yes, sir. So about 160, 170 families come through the drive-through food pantry every month.
Wow. But it goes back to, you set up the nonprofit for mentoring. So you had the vehicle. Right. But the mission shifted after the hurricane. Yes, sir. But then you had a burden to go back and help. Right. And then you just started helping. Yes, sir. With whatever people were willing to donate, whoever's willing to give whatever, we're just going to start helping. Yes, sir. And then the food bank then notices what you're doing and says, okay, we can actually provide you with extra support to do what you're doing. And here you are now, 2001, a year or so, and you've been distributing food every twice a month to the community. Wow. For those who, and you just had a class on this, are you going to offer that class again?
Yes, sir. Probably in the summer. The response has been phenomenal. I've only really been doing this for a month and a year and 3 months. But the Lord is just giving me strategy and blueprint that, like I said earlier, I reached out to people and people wouldn't respond to me. Mm-hmm. And God really was showing me that he was going to be the one that was going to download these strategies on how to impact the community. And so even with the food bank, we're a grassroots organization, and they're telling us that we're doing things that their partners that have been with them for years have not even done.
Wow. Well, let me ask this. How did you develop? You're not from Wilmington, correct?
Correct.
How did you develop? At what age did you move, and how did you develop a heart for a city that's not your home?
And since this is the candid conversation, I'm going to start by saying when I moved here, I hated Wilmington.
Because where are you from? Where are you from?
I was born in Silver Spring, Maryland, at Holy Cross Hospital. I went to church in Washington, D.C., Greater Morning Star Pentecostal Church for 7 years. And my father felt the call to ministry. And there was a church that had opened, or a church that was available in a small country town in North Carolina called Evergreen.
Okay.
And the person that had built that church reached out to our pastor, Bishop Johnson, and said, I have a building, it's in the middle of nowhere, but, can you send somebody down here to take over this work? And Bishop Johnson met with all the elders and said, if you feel the call to pastor, let me know. And at the time, Elder Reddgo Long Jr. Said, I feel the call to pastor. And talked with my mother, and they made a significant sacrifice to leave the 2-story townhouse,
right?
The Lexus, the nice vehicle, their jobs, and to move to a place where they didn't know anybody.
Wow.
The closest family was like in 7 or 8 hours. There was no family, didn't know anybody. So I was 8 years old when I got to Evergreen, small town. And, not even a stoplight. Not even a stoplight. I went through Evergreen yesterday.
Right.
And it's about an hour from Wilmington. So every now and then I'll go back to my own stomping grounds, and I look back and I see that was training ground for us.
Okay.
I see what my father, he's been pastoring over 20 years. I see how God just, groomed him as a pastor and some of the things that he experienced kind of in a smaller area.
Right.
That people will come and get baptized and get filled with the Holy Ghost, and they would go right back to their grandma church. And I was like, why are you going back to your grandma church? But that's how it was in that area. Like people were being filled, they were being saved, but they weren't sticking because of that area. They was like, but I got loyalty.
Right. Family church. Yeah.
There was no real social media. I think Social Cam, when I was growing up, was like the main social media in my space. Right. And so the Lord put Wilmington on my father's heart. And we transitioned the church. He said, I'm going to transition the church from Evergreen.
Okay.
Wilmington. And we moved here in 2014. Moved here in 2014. I got accepted into the University of North Carolina, Wilmington. And I was like, okay, well, that's a sign. Maybe the Lord wants us to be here. Just, we started a church here. I can finish my education here. So we moved here in 2014. We've been here about 8 years, roughly. And it took me a long time to like Wilmington because the culture is different. A lot of people, they love the beach.
Okay.
I like the beach, but they love the beach. And a lot of people retire from up north. A lot of older people retire and they move down here. It's a nice vacation spot. It's tourism.
Right. Okay.
I'm a country boy.
Okay.
I don't like being out and about. I was never used to, if I get hungry, I can just go down the street and get something to eat. Like I had to eat what was in the refrigerator. And so, Wilmington, it took a while. And
are you there yet?
I'm actually there.
Okay.
As you see the commitment to serve, I am there.
Okay.
It took me a few years, but God proved himself.
Okay.
Proved himself. I was like, all right, I ain't got to be like Gideon. I don't need a whole
Right.
bunch, but Lord, if you with my father, you with our church, you keep blessing us. So clearly you want us here. And, and it's I got to say this though. It's interesting that now the same people that I was calling and they didn't answer,
Right.
and they don't even remember, now they call me. And
Wow.
I'd be like, well, y'all didn't know that y'all left me on red.
And so now your impact and your imprint on Wilmington, I mean, it's like the whole city knows you now.
The Lord has put his spotlight on us, and all we can do is just give him the glory for it.
So let me ask these questions, even some myths of people or just some misconceptions. Now, when you do outreach, I know everybody wants the church to grow, but is that your goal?
It's actually not my goal, because outreach and evangelism are two different things. They go together, but outreach is literally doing that, reaching out. Evangelism is doing just that, evangelizing, giving the gospel message. So when you partner the two, usually you use an outreach method to reach the people and give them the gospel. So when it comes to the outreach portion, yes, I would love everybody that we feed to come to church, but I know that they're not going to come to church. But I want to give them the opportunity to be fed, to have the opportunity to come to church, and to let them know that, hey, there is a place for you here in the community, and to let them know. A lot of people don't come to our churches because they don't know that we're there.
Okay.
That's the simple thing, that there are a lot of neighborhoods that are around us. And, for a while, people were like, I didn't even know this church was here. I was like, well, you live.
You're absolutely right.
Okay. They had to know, oh, this yellow building is a church. And so now we're that church that feeds people. And now we're that church that they be having church outside. And one thing my father does every Saturday evening at 6:00, he walks around the block and prays. So while we're inside praying at 6:00, he walks around the block praying, and kids come up to him, and people are watching him while he's praying with him. And so the Lord's just showing himself mighty and strong. And every time he shows himself, I just want to make it my mission as a servant to just continue to push, keep that momentum, never be satisfied, continue to be like, Lord, okay, what can we do now? How do you want us to grow? What strategies do you want us to do?
So have you found any, was it Sam Ballard and Tobias that's been trying to sabotage the work? Like, have you met any opposition?
I don't, if we did, I haven't seen it, because, we've been just so focused on the work. And I think really for us, really targeting and understanding the territorial demons that are in our area, and targeting and seeing what the stronghold is. In order to take the strong man down, you got to first bind him up.
Right.
So, really finding, what's holding our city back. What's holding our community back, and really targeting that. And so, yes, opposition is going to come, but we're just so focused on the work that we don't even pay attention.
And I remember you shared about some of your demographic studies, the food deserts, the poverty levels. I mean, you've done your homework to learn, even though you're not from North Carolina or from Wilmington, you probably know more about the city than some of the people who live there, because you've immersed yourself in learning as much about the people as possible. How has that helped you in terms of being able to customize the ministry? The gospel is the gospel.
Right.
But like you said, the culture of a particular community, the territorial demons, you've been able to somewhat tailor your ministry to the needs of the people.
Yeah, it's really just seeing what is the need, where is the need, and what resources do we have to address those needs. And so I really did a lot of research, which first was, we're in a food desert. And so if we're in a food desert, how can our church mixed with our nonprofit help meet the needs of this community? Well, let's do a food pantry where people can get food. And so really identifying what the problems are. And that's, the advice that I give to other leaders that ask, hey man, like, what's your secret sauce? What you're doing? Do your research. And if you say, well, I don't have a way to do the research, go ask the people that live around your church. Go first ask your church. Ask the people, around your church, do y'all know we're here? And if you do know we're here, what can we do for you? Not trying to say, hey, y'all come over here. No, just what can we do to serve you? And once the people see that you are there to serve them, they're more open to receive what you have to give to them. And so when we started feeding people, their minds became open. If we put like we had Resurrection Sunday, and so I said, all right, we're gonna put some flyers in the grocery bags.
Okay.
When they see that this is something that we do every month, it's not just an event, they
Right.
have no problem with us putting any type of information in their bags because they know they can trust us.
That's
And,
it.
we're developing those relationships, and it's different with everyone, but everybody knows they can come by and they can trust us. And so, that's really what we did.
Wow. And in an age where people are distrusting of institutions,
Yes, sir.
in particular the church,
Yeah.
to regain some of that credibility and trust, it's going to take feeding them naturally before you're ever going to be able to feed them spiritually. And I think that is so important, because we want to just give them the gospel, which is important.
Absolutely.
But I don't want to hear what you're preaching if I don't know where my next meal is coming from.
Right.
And I think even from Jesus feeding the multitudes and preaching to, you got to have a holistic ministry. Let me ask this about your volunteers. You talked about your team and volunteers. What is the keys to effectively leading people that you don't pay?
That's a great question. Because like my background in Chick-fil-A really helped me develop that attitude of servitude.
Mm-hmm.
And I was a manager and a supervisor. So I was like 20, 21 years old, leading 80 employees. Half of them were older than I was. Even some of them, kind of looked at me differently, because I was like, who is this young man telling us what to do? But it really taught me leadership. So when it came to our volunteers, it's tough because, if there's a problem or is there something that needs to be rectified, you don't want to offend anybody, because if at any time they can just say, you know what, I'm not getting paid for this.
Right.
I don't need this. I can leave. And, I constantly admit the Acts movement is not me. It's a team thing. It's a we thing. And so I can't pass out food by myself. It's a team.
Right.
And so what I found was really simple, is having expectations set for the team.
Okay.
Because how can I be upset that you didn't meet my expectations when you didn't know what you need to do and what your goals were? So really being upfront and telling them, hey, these are our expectations. This is what we're planning to do. This is what we need you to do. And I found that our team has taken that responsibility and they've run with it. And they have been phenomenal. And like I said, and there are some of them that are on the live now. I appreciate them. And I always tell them, I appreciate them, because they don't have to give their time. They don't have to give their energy. They come and they do the work. And I make sure that I reward them as much as possible, because they're not getting paid.
Right.
So even after we get done with the food pantry, I'm like, all right, everything's cleaned up. Now you go shop. You go get some food for your family.
That's
whatever's
beautiful.
left over, you go take it. All right, you want some meat? All right, here's a freezer that I reserved just for you. Y'all come in here and get this. This is the least that I can do to pay you for your service.
So most of the volunteers for Acts Movement also members of the church?
Yes, sir. I would say a majority, if not all, if I'm not mistaken. Some, like we actually are having some students that are part of the National Honor Society.
Okay.
Who are using us to get their hours for community service.
Okay.
So right now, one of the things that I'm trying to do is work on how to develop other teams to come in and give our team a break. I love how hard they work, but I know that it can sometimes be tough. So I'm looking at either other churches or other organizations that want to adopt a Monday, where they and their team, 12 or 15 people, can come in on a Monday and they run the food pantry and they can serve with us.
That would be, I love that. I love the expansion. And I know in your sessions, you also mentioned creating, I guess, chapters or partnering with either other ministries in other cities. Is that the next step for the Acts Movement, is expansion to other cities?
It is having like affiliates. A lot of people have reached out and they say, we have the facility or we have different resources, but we just don't know how to get it started. And so it's one thing that, I'm currently working on, is seeing how the Acts Movement can expand beyond New Hanover County, expand beyond Wilmington, and it be in another area. It be ran by a whole nother church under the umbrella of the Acts movement, but serving their community in different ways. So that's something that, kind of slow walking it, nothing that, is going to happen overnight, but really kind of thinking and trying to gear up for the next steps.
Wow, I see your dad watching.
Oh, my dad.
God bless you, sir. So with that said, if someone now wants to donate or perhaps partner, volunteer, what is the best way to reach out to you specifically regarding the Acts movement?
They can simply go to our website, which is theactsmovement.org, www.theactsmovement.org, or you can just reach out directly. I'm on social media. So at the handle Reddgo Long Jr, whether it's on Facebook or Instagram, you can message me, connect with me there. But that's the best way to donate or partner with us.
So all this is going on. You are an associate minister at your father's church.
Yes, sir.
You're running this nonprofit organization in your community. At the same time, you are the youth president for a major apostolic organization. You are let me get this correct. I call you founding president. Is that the correct term?
Yeah, you can look at it like that. Yes, sir, I am.
The founding youth president of Apostolic Faith Fellowship International under Bishop Johnson.
Yes, sir.
And you've served in that capacity now for how long?
For 8 years.
8 years. So you were 20 when you were?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yeah, when I started, I was 20. When I got chosen, I was 19.
Okay. I was thinking teens. That's why I hesitated. So how did you become the founding president of a major apostolic organization just getting started at 19 years old? How did you get the keys to the car so early when I know at the average local church,
yes, sir,
you can't be youth president at 19?
Right. Yes, sir.
So what can you tell us that process?
So that process happened when the organization was getting up and running and they started choosing auxiliary leaders. And Bishop Charles Johnson, the founding presider, and our assistant presiding bishop at that time, Bishop Ronald Sanders, who ended up passing before our first convention. Bishop Johnson and Bishop Sanders got together, and when they got to the young people, they said, well, we want BJ, because I'm known as BJ. They want BJ. And so they called my dad, who's on here, and they called him. And my dad, just talking to me, it's like, yeah, Bishop Johnson called me, and him and Bishop Sanders said that they want you to be the youth president. I said, well, you talk about. And I kid you not, he's on here. I named maybe 4 other people.
Right.
4 other people. I said, well, what about such and such? What about elder such and such? What about pastor such and such? Mm-hmm. He said, I don't know. All I know is they told me that they want you to be the youth president.
Wow.
Now, I had been the team director for the North Carolina Council of the Pentecostal Assemblies of the World.
Right.
That was about as high as I was one of the assistant team directors for the national level. So there's for the PAW, there's the IPYPU, and then there were IPYPU teams. Right. So I had that opportunity, but I wasn't even a local president. I had no experience leading young people. At that time, I was just a young preacher. Right. I was like, when you needed somebody to preach your fire starter service, they was like, get Reddgo Long Jr. Like I was operating in that capacity. So they chose me and I said yes to the Lord, and that was that.
I know for myself, I served this team. At 22, I became a vice president. Okay. 2 years later, that current president stepped down, and he was like, you should run for president. I said, there's no way I am running for president. I guess I would have been at 24 at the time. And I was like, he said, I think you could do it. I said, but these I was afraid of the bishops. I was afraid. I said, how am I going? I see how they beat you up, and how in the world am I going to navigate? Yes. I ain't ready for that. Yeah. So what I I can only imagine. Yeah, that was at 24. I eventually became president at 28. But you've already, at 28, have already served as president almost 10 years. And for me, I was the 9th president. Our youth department had been around for 50 some years. You're not only a young president, there's no template to follow.
None at all. And my dad actually said something important. I missed the important part. They told him that they wanted somebody young to lead the young people.
Mm-hmm.
That's why they chose me.
Because I love that.
I guess it's the only young person that they could think of to really lead the young people. Now, I don't know what Bishop Sanders saw in me at that time. I don't know what Bishop Johnson saw in me at that time, but I'm so glad that they took that chance on me to allow me the platform of a fresh organization.
Yes.
We didn't even have Constitution and bylaws together.
That's what I'm talking about.
At that time, I put the Constitution and bylaws together. My own auxiliary. No blueprint, no strategy, just kind of being thrown in there. But the reason why I was able to be comfortable is because we all were new at this. Bishop Johnson had never been a presider. All the other auxiliary leaders had never been, national leaders. So it was like, well, we all in this thing. We're going to learn together. So that's what made me feel a little bit more comfortable. That was like, wait, nobody's a pro at this. And we just going to grow in this thing together. And then, 8-9 years later, now kind of us that helped found the organization have a special bond within the organization.
That I love that, because I'm thinking about myself. One of the challenges is, because you've been around and everybody knows what they're doing, sometimes there's a resistance to innovation and change, because this is always how we've done it. But then I'm like, on the other hand, you had the opposite experience where it's like, okay, there's no template, but yet I can really shape this thing kind of how I want, or how God wants it to go. So what were some of the challenges as well as opportunities that you faced as a founding president? And you kind of mentioned some, but were there any unique challenges, opportunities that now, looking back on your 9 years as a youth president, that you can reflect on?
I'll say one of the unique challenges was not finding out till later on in my tenure, but a lot of people really questioning why I was chosen.
Okay.
Young people's president. And really, because I didn't have that experience.
Mm-hmm.
And really just kind of being thrown out there. But the unique opportunity was to develop a culture that I believed God wanted for our organization.
Okay. And
so with it being whatever we do is a first,
right?
Nobody could ever say, well, we've never done that. Well, we've never done it. So it allowed me to say, okay, well, and really have my ear to the mouth of God and saying, God, what do you want this generation of seekers to look like? And so really being able to really focus in on my planning and putting a team together. And as we begin to flow, how God, and the crazy thing is, God showed me a lot of things within my first 2 years as president that I did not see until maybe year 6 and 7.
Okay.
And that's an example that there are things that God may give you now that may be for later. And when I would tell people what I saw, they'd be like, what are you talking about?
That's a visionary.
It's like, nobody in this service, like, y'all had service for 45 minutes, like nobody got saved. Like, what are you doing? Right. And it was just, as a leader holding in, like, this is what God showed me, but it's not happening. And what do I do? And I just had to be patient and depend on knowing that God will fulfill his promise that he gave me.
So what would you say is the key to winning some of those skeptics? Was it consistency? Was it excellence? Was it what in the end, how did you win some? And maybe you haven't won them all over yet, but when did you kind of feel the shift to like, okay, I'm in charge. They know I'm in charge. I think I got them with me now.
Yeah, it was definitely consistency, and it was certainly innovation in doing things that other auxiliaries had not yet done. So we did the first convention outside of the national convention.
Okay.
So the young people were the first people that were gathering saints, and it wasn't a national event being put on. It was an auxiliary strictly in charge. Young people leading, young people preaching, young people singing, young people putting the program together. So really, that first youth convention, and ever since then, I think we've done about 4 since that time, are what really allowed people to see the hand of God on me leading these young people like I believe God had gave me. And I mean, the souls
Right.
that got baptized, filled with the Holy Ghost at these events. I mean, our first youth convention, I had the craziest idea. I said, you know what? We in Columbia, South Carolina. We're going to go to Benedict College, and we're going to go do outreach at Benedict College. And we went and did, and we talked to so many young people. And that night, we had about 50 or 60 young people.
Wow.
From Benedict College come to service. I think a couple got the Holy Ghost. It was just an amazing, eye-opening experience that everything we was doing was new. I wasn't going against the grain.
Right.
I was just developing new methods in how I believe that this generation can be won by other young people.
I love that. I love that. The outreach and excellence and the anointing, you didn't have to get up there. I'm the president. Y'all do what I say. God validated your ministry, established you, and the works, speak for themselves. So you mentioned innovation. Was there anything that you looked to for innovation? Like, did you pull from PAW and PCAF? Did you pull from others, or was it really downloads from God?
Programming wise, I pulled from our sister organizations in the way that they conducted conferences and conventions. So when it came to, whether it's a Thursday through Saturday, or do you do it Wednesday through Friday, that's where I really looked to other youth presidents to see what they were doing, see what kind of works for them. But when it came to our order of service, when it came to kind of our flow of the week, God just downloaded, and it was what I call trial and error. But with God, it was no error.
Thank you, Jesus.
So 1 year, it may have been a Wednesday through Friday, and everybody on Saturday. Another year, it'll be start Thursday night, and we go through Saturday afternoon. But God blessed everything that we did. And, the speakers, one of the things I would say, if I learned anything, was I learned to hear the voice of God in picking the people that spoke to our young people.
Yes.
Because I certainly am responsible as a leader, as a youth president, of who is talking to your members as a pastor.
Right.
You bring your young people on a bus, to our convention. You literally put them in care and saying, hey, I want you to inspire them, encourage them, impart something in them, and I want you to bring in people that are going to light a fire.
Right.
A lot of pressure. So I would say one of the things I had to learn was only one time, and one time only in my tenure, did I listen to somebody else and pick a speaker. I can't say who because we only 8 years old, and they gonna get that. But I picked a speaker just based off of and a friend of mine, close friend, not even in the organization.
Right.
I was new. I know he had more experience than me, and I said, man, listen, I know what to do, and kind of things didn't go the way that I wanted to, and I made a vow to the Lord. I said, God, I'll do it, but you got to show me who you want to speak to your people.
Absolutely.
And God started to show me, and every speaker that we have had has been phenomenal. 3 speakers that we've had have not even gotten to preach. Flew them in, gave them a big hotel, and we've had services, and the preacher's not even preached.
I think I've been to some of those. I think last time I was with you, I think Elder Pepper did flowed with it.
Yep. He still owed me because he didn't even preach.
But I agree with you. I found, and I shared this, I think, when talking with Hollis, and how I made a mistake, but God directed me to him, and how God looked over my mistake and blessed us with a phenomenal speaker that's been just a great asset and friend. But you're absolutely right. I think my own integrity was 2 main concerns. I think that was one, that I didn't want to make a mistake,
right,
and cause other people to stumble. And then the other was, I was very guarded about the preachers, and they used to laugh at me. Oh, Travis require background checks. And I said, yes, I do.
Absolutely.
I said, I really want to make sure that this is the person that God is leading, because like you said, you want the big name, you want the flyer appeal, you want who gonna bring in the money, who gonna bring in the crowd. But in the end, God, who have you put your word in their mouth to speak to us at this moment?
Absolutely.
And when there's so many different voices and opinions, that to me was the hardest thing. To like, all right, God, who do you want to speak this time?
Yes, sir.
So I totally understand. And you mentioned about retaining and recruiting youth. What do you see as a youth leader and as a young man yourself? Bishop Johnson, they gave you the opportunity to lead at an early age. Your dad had you out preaching at an early age. What do you see as the key to retaining and recruiting youth back to the Apostolic Church or keeping them in the Apostolic Church?
I think really giving them an opportunity to have a voice and to have a platform, especially our young people who have been born and raised in church. That's what's always in them, but giving them an opportunity to get it out. But if they hold it in and then they start getting exposed to all these different things and they feel like that they're being held back, then they may make the wrong decision in leaving too early and going to, there's a whole lot of temptation to join other ministries and join organizations. And it's important, I think, as the church that we give an opportunity to the young people that we have cultivated, who we have preached to, who we've raised up, give them opportunity to use the gifts and the callings that God has placed in them. And that's one thing I certainly will always appreciate about, my pastor and about Bishop Johnson is that, like I said earlier, they said, we want the young people out there.
Right.
We want to put young people in place who are going to win young people.
Right.
And they were keen 8-9 years ago when I wasn't even paying attention that they were called to a certain group of people, but they needed somebody that would undergird them, who would support them, who would have their same heart and have their same vision and be able to also take along that generation. So while our presider is over our general body, that I am supposed to be a replica of him at another level. So the way he believes and what he preaches and what he teaches, Reddgo Long Jr. is right there in just a different version. I'm not changing anything. I'm just giving it maybe in a different method. But I'm here to reach this other group of people who are part of that parent body and to help them cultivate and for them to be used and have that platform to give out what God has put inside of them.
So do you have an example of where God was leading you to do one thing and they didn't quite see it? And how did you eventually, I guess, convince them to let you try it your way and it worked out? Are there any examples of that where, like, I don't know about that long?
I think that youth convention. When I think I was in the board, they called me in the boardroom at the national convention. And of course, it's some secret room down in the hotel somewhere. And they called me down there in this huge ballroom that I didn't even know was a part of the hotel. And I walk in there, they're like, okay, you can come on in here. And all the bishops are sitting there. And, I think somebody else was in front of me talking. And I sat down and they just said, all right, Elder Long, we want to hear what you got to say. And I was sitting down like this and I started talking. And one of the bishops said, get up, get up. I said, yes, sir. I was nervous.
Like you're in court. Like you're in court.
I was nervous. I was like, oh my goodness. Like, I just have a simple idea and I have to explain it in totality. And I said, well, bishops, if you would have me, I have all this information that I put together. This is what we want to do. This is the city that we want to go to. And I believe that if we want to grow as an organization, if we want to take it to another level, then we have to be trusted to have this opportunity. And a couple of bishops, they was like, okay, asking questions that I did not have the answer to at the time because either I forgot or I didn't think about it. And finally, I believe the presider was like, well, this looks good. And, we're going to give you an opportunity to do it. And what really validated it was that our presiding bishop was at the first night of our convention. If I'm not mistaken, he's been to every convention that we have had thus far, even if he just came for a night.
Okay.
He showed up, he gave, and he said, call me later, let me know how it go, and went on about his way. And so that was, like I said, that was an opportunity where this had not been done by any other auxiliary. And so it was like, if the young people failed, then men don't try to do nothing. Missionaries don't y'all try to have nothing.
Oh my goodness.
A lot of young people try to do this, and it didn't work.
But the fact that you had the wisdom, the maturity, the poise, the diplomacy to even go in and navigate that room at your age,
yes, sir,
speaks a lot about you. So let me ask this. When the question is asked, are leaders born or made? Were you born or were you made a leader?
For me personally, I was made a leader.
Okay.
Look back over just my journey. It's different for everybody, but for me, it really took me, like I said, working at Chick-fil-A, and I was under a mentor. The owner of that Chick-fil-A, his name was Mr. Mark Morris. He still owns that Chick-fil-A, and he saw something in me as a leader that I didn't see. And he called.
But you were born then.
I guess
I'm gonna let you finish, but you just said he saw something in you. So go ahead, Long.
It's a tricky question, but what I learned under him and how he trained me was how I developed my leadership skills in order to run the organization and to ultimately run, the Acts movement and the church. So, I mean,
So let me ask you, even though you're 28 years old, do you have a succession plan?
We do not, as of yet. I can be completely honest. Right now, I think I'm definitely looking at some of our young people in our organization and really trying to cultivate them. One thing I do is, some of the young preachers that are in our organization, when I'm at conventions, I call them and say, hey, I want you to hang with me for today. I'm going to the finance office at 5. I want you to meet me in the elevator at 4:30. I'm gonna show you, what we're gonna do today. So really kind of giving them a peek and opportunity. That's something Pastor James Sears, he still does to me this day. If I'm ever with him anywhere, come on, you're gonna walk with me. I mean, I'm at his conference,
right?
Putting me behind the scenes, and that's something that I'm taking with me as well. That those that I see something in, that I want to give them an opportunity to be exposed to, what we're doing behind the scenes and what things are behind the pulpit.
So you don't have term limit or age limit yet?
Do not have. I think we just, after 8 years, we just put together term limits. This past or the convention before. So this is technically my first term.
Everything was preseason.
Everything was preseason. So now the game, I guess, really gonna begin.
I love that. Now, all this time, one of the risks of having a young man is, the immaturity, I guess, factor that could come into play, the perhaps lack of knowledge or wisdom and planning and diplomacy. But one of the issues I know a lot of the old bishops worry about, putting young men in particular in charge, is questions of integrity.
Right.
But your pastor and your bishop has allowed you to, become a youth president, a minister. Some organizations, you can't even be a minister unless you're married. Right. So here you are, a young man, high profile position, serving, traveling. How were you able to maintain your integrity in such a high profile position for such a long period of time?
I think for me, it has to do with the examples that were set in my life, and also having the opportunity to observe others who have been in high profile positions, but did not achieve certain levels of integrity. And so really seeing the good and the bad and making up in my mind, okay, well, I'm not going to do the bad, because clearly that's possible, that's achievable if you make the wrong decision. And I'm going to choose to say, hey, well, I have an example of how to do things the right way. And really seeing my pastor and Bishop Johnson and how they live their life, and how literally, people try to find dirt. I mean, they are upstanding men of God who have shown me that you can be in a high profile position, still live right, not have to look over your shoulder, and really making a conscious effort and decision that I'm going to be different. I don't want to be like the other preachers that may have something behind their name. But some people learn by experience and others
Right.
learn by observation. If I'm driving in a car and I run over a pothole 2 or 3 times in the same area, I don't have to experience that to understand if I see a pothole, I'm going to avoid it.
Right.
So I decided to take the observation route, route and say, well, okay, I've seen that this can happen. Nobody is above reproach. Like,
Right.
some of the most high profile have fallen.
Right.
And Lord, I don't want it to be me. So I want to live right. I want to be right. I have examples that can't happen, and making the right decisions.
Because I remember, like I mentioned, I was officer. I was single minister. They allowed me to be the exception. And that was the biggest thing. Lord, don't let me fall or let me make a mistake. But and my position wasn't anywhere as high profile as yours. But just knowing, you go to certain cities and they trying to hook you up with this one, and they done picked out who you want. If you don't want them, then they make up a reason why you don't want them. And then it may be somebody you are interested in, but then you don't know how to, say anything because you don't know if it's going to be rejected. And I mean, it's a complicated space to navigate. And one of the things I commend you for is being in this position to be a man of integrity, that your name is not spotted, that you are a Joseph, and that you didn't fall into the traps of a David. And so with that, congratulations to you.
Thank you, sir.
You're getting I didn't even realize when we booked this, like my wife was like, you booked him when? You're getting married when?
In 18 days, April the 30th.
So I like that you said not just April 30th, you said 18 days. You know how many hours? Nah.
I don't know how many hours, but I know how many days. My days are running.
18 days. Reddgo Long is off the market.
Yes, sir. Been off the market, but I'm officially off the market.
There you go. I love that. I don't know if you want to shout out your fiance or if you have a testimony to share about her real quick.
Absolutely. Sylvia Hayes, Pastor Sylvia Hayes, that's my fiance. And the Lord just, blessed us to get together. We got together not expecting to be in a relationship, but just our friendship matured. And the Lord is just, I'm just grateful. She's one of my inspirations, just whether it's spiritually or educationally. She's actually finishing her PhD.
Wow.
And she's defending her dissertation in June. And so Dr. Sylvia Hayes. And so she's one of the main reasons that I went for my master's, and then now I'm going for my doctorate. She just inspired me in many ways. And if you watched YLC a couple weeks ago, you see that she is a preacher.
Yes, sir.
So one of the most exciting things about marriage that I'm looking forward to is us being able to work together in ministry. We're already setting up, dates I already have booked, and I want her to come. I want her to be a part. And likewise, when she goes out. So we're trying to navigate our schedules. It's going to be a lot to try to handle, but I want to make sure, like you said, I've seen examples of, my pastor, my father, he takes my mother everywhere he goes.
Right.
And if it can be prevented, I want, my wife to go everywhere. I don't have anything to hide. I want her to be right out there with me. I want her to introduce me and sneak a preach at the same time.
There you go. I love that. My wife has traveled me everywhere I've gone. I probably count on my hands.
Yes, sir.
The times that she has not traveled me, going to the different churches while I served as you. And so she's making the move. She's gonna make that Maryland to North Carolina.
She's making sacrifice, and I cannot tell her how thankful I am that she's literally picking up everything. She's very active in her current church. And so I'm appreciative that, the Lord's blessed us with a home here in Wilmington that we've been able to build. And so, Lord willing, after we get back from the honeymoon, we'll be here.
She was just appointed, assistant pastor right before you proposed?
Assistant pastor as a way to really lead the church for kind of like the succession plan where
Okay.
she'll be there for about 6 months until she's gone, and really get leaders in place, put people in her place so that when she's physically gone, the church will still run as normal.
And you said she has so she's in ministry, but
Yes,
she's also has her doctorate in what is her doctorate in?
You can't put me on the spot.
Oh, Jesus. I'm sorry, Long. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Oh, man. I wish you was on here. It's in something. I tell you that. It's in
You said some what?
It's in. I have to.
No. I'm sorry. We'll cut that out. But she has her PhD.
Yes, sir.
And you're working on yours. So not only will both of you be elder and elder, it'll be doctor and doctor. That's unheard of in the Apostolic Church.
Yes, sir. She's getting her doctorate of philosophy in communication studies. And her research focus is health communications.
You'll never forget that.
She does so much because she's always running things by me. She works for NIH.
Okay.
She's running a bunch of COVID research, and she's doing a lot of those things. And so I'm definitely godly proud of her and communication studies.
So what are you got Acts Movement, you're associate minister at the church, you're a youth president for a major apostolic organization, you're about to be a husband. What are your career? Is there anything left professionally that you're trying to accomplish?
I'm looking because my doctorate that I'll be pursuing is in higher education administration. So my next goal is to secure a position at a higher education institution. And I'm very close to that. And so I'm excited about really honing in on really what I want to do. I've been teaching elementary school and coaching basketball in middle school and high school for the last 4 or 5 years. And I feel like the Lord has finally led me to what I want to do and my purpose in the secular world. And so I'm lining up with everything. And I'm excited that after, the honeymoon, literally a lot of things are going to be new, not just in marriage, but in my career, in my education. Like a lot of doors are literally going to be open. It's not something I'm hoping and praying for. Things are already in stone.
Wow.
I'm waiting to get back from the honeymoon and those things open. So God has just been so faithful, and I've waited and prayed over a lot of things for a long time. So you can only imagine the feeling of relief when God finally does it. You wake up and you don't have that burden anymore.
Wow. Like you're coming into it's like everything from a relationship, ministry, career, all of this is coming together in this, and you're still young. So what's next? I know there are things you want to accomplish, but you've accomplished so much, but what is it left that you really want to accomplish?
I think really at this point is I don't really have any major accomplishments because the things that I want to accomplish are now getting in motion.
Okay.
And so now it's really building that momentum and sustaining the momentum to finish the doctorate, to, get in that higher education institution, to, travel in ministry. A lot of things the wheels are getting turning. And so, I think, once those get in motion and in stone, I can really develop, a new 3-year plan or a new 5-year plan, because, I'll have a family. I'll be in a different position. I'll be in a different place. So right now, I guess I'm at kind of the last leg of my career goals from 5 years ago, or my life goals from 5 years ago.
And I like that, because I wanted to ask you this question. And if you're writing your autobiography, it's not finished. It's no ways near finished. Right. But it sounds like you're at the end of one chapter and starting a new one.
Yeah.
What would you entitle the ending chapter, and what would you entitle the next chapter? In Reddgo Long's autobiography.
Okay.
What is the chapter that you just ended? What is the chapter you're getting ready to start?
The chapter that I just ended was built to last.
Okay.
A lot of things that I have been through, especially in this last year, I believe would have broken a lot of other people. But God has given me the strength to overcome. And the beginning of that next chapter would be from good to great, from good to great, from a good preacher, from a good fiance, from a good man, from a good educator. And now I feel like, and yeah, I feel like I'm making that transition to being great. Like I'm finally where, I've always dreamed to be, where I thought God wanted me, and doors that were closed and rejected and denied, they all make sense now. Like they literally,
Wow.
I literally thank God for every time I got a no, for every time I wanted it and God said, nah. Like I'm so grateful. And so this chapter, it's from good to great. And so y'all stay tuned to see what the Lord does. It's not me, it's what the Lord is doing. And I can't thank him enough for it.
Wow. We're so honored that you took time out of your schedule to be with us for Mantle Mondays. I'm going to put your contact information. We have Elder Reddgo Long Jr., who is the founding youth president, Apostolic Faith Fellowship, founder and CEO of the Acts Movement. You can connect with him on Instagram as Reddgo Long Jr. His website, also ReddgoLongJr.com. We also want you to be a blessing to him. We're going to put his Cash App up. He's getting married.
Yes,
He's good ground. I mean, hey,
thank you.
he needs some money just because he getting married. He taking on a wife. He said he got a new house. He
Yes,
got a
sir.
lot of things going on, and so we'll be sowing. But if giving to a man like this is like investing in a stock in its beginning, it's going to have an increase, if not exponential increase in value.
Wow, bless you,
And
sir.
so you've seen what he's done. And I believe that is only the beginning of where God is going to take him. And so I want to afford anybody the opportunity that you've been inspired by his message, his testimony. You've heard what he's doing in the community with the Acts movement. Like you said, he's getting married in 2 weeks, things he's trying to do in his career. We have his Cash App. And that is the correct Cash App, correct?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, the Cash App there that you can sow into him directly. We don't collect anything, but you just sow it directly to him, and we invite you to do that. In closing, Elder Long, and I'm so appreciative. Like I said, you're one of my heroes in the faith, even though you're younger than me. And from the time I think we first met, I think it was in Indianapolis. Oh,
Yes,
we
sir.
already knew each other then. I can't remember if we already had met in Indianapolis or.
This is my first time meeting it.
I think so. And then you came and spoke in North Carolina, and then spoke for us in Maryland. And just utmost respect and appreciation for you and what God is doing for you and in your life. And so in closing, is there anything that you might want to share to perhaps a young person? Anything. I'm just going to give it wide open. You could take it in the direction of some young person who's just struggling during the pandemic that need a word of encouragement, or some young leader that's just waiting for their moment, and for whatever reason, they haven't been given that chance to shine. Whatever the Lord lays on your heart, the floor is yours, just to speak what God gives you to speak to the people tonight.
Well, thank you again, Bishop Travis, just for this opportunity on your platform to share. You certainly inspired me in all that you do inside the pulpit and outside the pulpit. So I'm certainly grateful to you being an example and allowing me to share just for any person, young or old, that may be really trying to figure out their purpose, really just being patient and waiting on the Lord. And while you wait on him, not literally sitting there being stagnant, but wait as in serving him, and in whatever your hands find to do it well. And one thing, a part of my testimony, is that I've had my hands in a lot of things. I have reached into a lot of things because I said, God, I don't know what you want me to do, but I know that if I put my hand in something and you bless it and you sustain it, then you'll help me get an idea of what you want me to do. And so you're looking at somebody that's been frustrated, trying to figure out their purpose. You're looking at somebody that's been agitated, that has gotten no after no. But I am a testimony that if you just continue to serve him, if you continue, even when you don't feel like it, to continue to remember that it's not about you, but it's about him. By putting God first when it mattered the most to me, he put me first and literally created opportunities. I always heard the old folks say that he'll make a way out of no way. But for the opportunity that God recently gave me, it was a way that was not even there.
Thank you, Jesus.
It was an opportunity that wasn't existing. And God literally opened the door and allowed something to be created just for me. And I feel like that was because God had something specifically set aside that I couldn't search it on the internet. Nobody even knew what it was. And so I would just encourage somebody, if you're in the church, to continue to serve the Lord, continue to go after souls, continue to support your ministry and your pastor during this pandemic, because it is certainly needed. And I believe that because of the support of the ministry that I have given and the service I've given to the community, that God didn't leave me hanging. And God won't leave you hanging if you continue to do his work, if you continue to do his will. So just be encouraged and just don't stop. Just continue, be consistent, and watch the fruit. You know, when you put seed in the ground, it doesn't grow the next day. And when you put seed in the ground, it's not always going to be sunshine. If it's always sunshine, it's not going to grow. But it's got to have a little dirt growing on it. It's got to have a little water growing on it. And so I'm grateful that I'm now finally seeing the manifestation. I believe that this year, for everybody watching, this is going to be a year of demonstration. And what you've heard God say, well, what you've heard him say through his messenger and what you've read in his word, you're going to see him demonstrate his power like never before. So continue to serve him. And literally out of nowhere, you're going to see God do it for you.
Wow. 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 If you're in the comments, if you're in the chat, if you could just put some emojis, some GIFs, some comments, let's let them roll off. Just let Elder Long know how much you appreciate him, how much you're grateful for his life, for his testimony, for his message tonight, how grateful we are and how we've been inspired, how much we've learned by his life lessons and his testimony. And so we're so grateful, and we're praying God's blessings on your marriage and your ministry and your career and all that you put forth your hands to do, that God would give you divine favor and wisdom and length of days and resources will come out of nowhere, that the funding for the vision, thank you, Jesus, that God gives you the funding for everything that God puts in your heart to do for the community and for the ministry, that the money will be there, that you'll have more than enough to do what you need to do. And I think as David and as Joseph, I always consider around 30 as the years of manifest destiny. All the years have been preparation for the moment. And so everything, the good, the bad, the ugly, you're now in your moment to be everything that God has been preparing you to be up until now. And so I look forward to just being in the stands, cheering you on, and being a part of your fan club and one of your intercessors and big brothers. If you're here, need us, we got your back. We're here to help you whatever way we can. And so to our viewers, once again, thank you for joining us tonight for Mantle Mondays. We invite you to join us next week. We'll be interviewing Elder Aaron Porter, former youth president for the Pentecostal Churches of the Apostolic Faith. And then on April 26th, we'll have Elder Jared Perdue, who is the former youth president for the Pentecostal Assemblies of the world. And then on the screen, you can see some of our guests for May. Presiding Bishop Charles Ellis, former presiding Bishop, Pentecostal Assemblies of the World, and Bishop William Harris, International Apostolic Fellowship, presiding bishop, that will be joining us. And so as our slogan has always been, it's never too early to prepare for success. We bid you Godspeed, good night, and God bless you.
God bless you.
Looking to start a church, business, or nonprofit organization in 2021? Do you need help forming an LLC, applying for a copyright or trademark, revising church bylaws, crafting a succession plan, or developing a compensation package for your pastor and staff? Contact the law office of Travell Travis, a Richmond-based legal boutique focused on the needs of pastors, entrepreneurs, creatives, and our community. Let's make your vision a reality in 2021. Visit TravellTravis.com. That's TRAVELL Travis.com. If you're concerned about the future of your organization when you step down, then Where Will the Mantle Fall? A biblical and legal guide to succession planning is a must-read for you. It delves into the scriptural and legal aspect